Hi, can you guys hear me? Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool. Hey, we're all in black today.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah,
Dev,
this
Dev
was
Brothers, man.
totally unplanned, but yeah.
Black Saturday. Okay, all right. So, well, I want to welcome everybody to the SGG Industry Day again. My name is Kim. I'm the panel moderator for this session, and I'm also the co-founder of a local indie game studio, Landshark Games. We're known for the relaxing collection game mobile games and koi. So in this session today, I have with me my fellow co-founders and also 3 local indie studios based here in Singapore. So Desmond from Gentle Bros, Sean from Battle Brew, and Shi Xiang from Lionfish Studios. So welcome everybody. And so we'll be chatting today about building your dream game versus sustainability. I think it's quite a good topic for all of us for today. We've been making games for a while now. So hopefully this session, we keep it chill and casual. It's the weekends.
Yep.
So let's keep it honest and candid if we can. For those of you out there listening at the moment, we hope you can join us in the conversation later when we have questions open to the floor for the panelists. So let's start with some introductions. So how shall we do this? Sean, shall you go?
Oh, wow. Okay.
First?
I'm Sean from Battle Brew Productions. So Battle Brew Productions is most well known for the line of games that we have called Battle Sky Brigade. I think our latest release for that was part of the Apple Arcade global release. That'll be Battle Sky Brigade Harpooner. That's a vertical shooter / fishing game. We are working on a couple of new projects. One of them picked up 2 awards last year, still in production. That's a ramen making game called Noodle Superstar, still in production. The other one's not announced yet.
So Ramen Superstar has been announced?
Noodle Superstar, but yeah, it's a ramen making game.
Okay, Noodle Superstar. Okay, good, cool. So what about Desmond?
So Desmond, right, one of the co-founders of a local studio called the Gentle Bros. So we're probably best well known for a series of games called Cat Quest, where you play as this cat going on it's an action RPG, so you go on this cat venture, as we like to say, where you're trying to save this cat world from like an evil cat villain, right? So it's really lighthearted, it's really fun for the whole family. And we've just released Cat Quest 2 in 2019, also on Apple Arcade, but it's also on Steam, PS4, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox. So it was crazy during that point of time, right? So all 3 co-founders in the company were also originally from Koei Tecmo. So we've had experience making AAA games as well, like Dynasty Warriors, Ninja Gaiden, and Dead or Alive. So right now, we are in the process of expanding and growing our company. So we're hiring for anyone interested. And we're making the next Cat Quest game as well in the series. Yeah.
Cool. Shi Xiang?
Okay, I'm Shi Xiang from Lionfish Studios. So I think for us, we are a bit more not as well known as the rest, because about 3 years ago, we were doing indie and we pivoted to doing more towards gamification work. So we have been doing a lot of serious game in the last 3 years. This gives us quite a different take on how to make games and like the topic of sustainability in a game development studio. And I think the other interesting fact is that we are the only studio here that actually started right out of like university. So like if you guys have questions regarding that, maybe we can help answer those questions.
Cool. So yeah, 2 of you started your journey as employees of AAA companies, and Shi Xiang started your journey with a project, right? I think you started in uni and then you kind of like follow through with client services as well now at this point. So, and you have a very impressive list of clients under your belt as well. So I guess I want to hear about how the journey has been a little different. I guess you transitioned from, your own indie games to client services. Is that right? So your clients involve government.
Yeah. So maybe I can talk a bit more about our journey. So we actually started right out of university. So we started with 3 co-founders. So 3 of us. We actually started doing indie games first. just that one of the indie games that we were trying to do was also a collaboration with the Singapore government to make a SG50 game to celebrate Singapore's 50th birthday. And from there, we continued trying to make indie games for another 3 years. We were making moderate kind of revenues, but not enough for, I mean, like when you see all your friends making money overseas, and starting, I mean, not overseas, in companies and starting to buy houses and cars, then you also will have to rethink like how long is passion going to sustain your stomach, and like how to transform this into a business that we can actually run and sustain it over a period of time, and not just like doing it out of pure passion.
Right. So that's a good 6 years. So with that realization, with 5 years on and beyond, you start to question, okay, is passion enough to feed my lifestyle here in Singapore, right? So I think that's one of the many key drivers for us to think about sustainability and beyond. So for Sean and Desmond, you guys have found success in arcade and on Steam and on consoles, and you guys have won awards for not client services, but on your own idea of what is a good game to be put out there in the market. So I guess from your perspective, what do you think how do you think your journey has been trying to get you to that point of sustainability? Just to prefix for all of us, I think we have all managed some level of sustainability. And for Sean, I guess you have a team of
we're about 8 now, about there.
8
maybe,
for Desmond,
maybe 10.
Right, 8 to 10, similar to ours. Desmond,
we're about like 3 developers,
3 and growing.
Growing. So we want to grow.
Yep. We heard of your success on newspaper, so congratulations on that.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Yeah, you're carrying on with some of that push to grow your team, right? And for Sixiang is like you already have a team of 20. So that's really
20,
right. That's really successful. So for Sean and Desmond, like how has it been? I mean, you can't quote a client on the time you spent making your game. You are kind of basing off your feel for what you feel that is a good game, right? What's your dream game? How has that been? Sean, you want to share some of your insights?
I think it's always a balancing act, right? So I think even if, say, you made what other people might think is a pile of money, you don't really ever go like, woohoo, we're rich. It's more like you look at it and go like, okay, congrats, we now have X months with this amount of money, or we have X amount of time, or a year, or something like that, right? So I don't think you necessarily, unless you make a huge amount and you go like comparative to all the spend, including like production spend, marketing spend, etc. But then you go like, hey, we've got like crazy amount of runway. You're probably not going to go, okay, we are like rolling in cash or whatever. I think for us, I mean, like say, okay, we're about like 8-ish people, so we're in between like 20 people and 3 people, right? I think with 3 people, it'd be a lot more manageable. 20 people, maybe your burn's a little bit more worrying. But for us, I think all businesses, you kind of look at your burn and your runway versus how much you're making. So even when you go like, okay, if I expand the team and we hire 2 more people, how much less runway do we have, that sort of thing. So I don't think you think so much in like, say, individual, you don't think for yourself, you think more as like for the whole group or the whole company.
Right.
I think, we generally look at it in terms of how much time we have, because time is money, basically.
Yeah, agreed. Desmond?
So the question was a bit like, how do we balance sustainability and go about making our dream game in a sense? Is it?
Yeah. I think so more so from less of client services, because for myself, I think I've come from also client services.
Right.
A client, the time, right? That we can estimate the time for this project. For us as indie developers, so-called as people who are, for developers that are actually creating their own IP, say, right, and hoping that IP will take off, like you guys have with CatQuest. Right? So the faith behind that, like, nobody's gonna pay for your time. You're gonna like risk it all, basically.
So like like just to give a brief history, Cat Quest wasn't the first game our studio had made. We actually made Slashy Hero before that. So Slashy Hero was kind of like a free-to-play game. So at that point, we decided to do free-to-play because essentially everyone at that point of time, like, I don't know, you guys remember Pixel, right? Like everyone was making free-to-play games back then. So we were also like one of those because it seemed like the safest thing to do, right? Because there's no barrier of entry, yada, 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 right? So that was that. So with Cat Quest, initially, we actually wanted to go free-to-play as well. But we quickly realized that, we weren't very strong, or at least I wasn't strong at designing a free-to-play game. So we decided to focus on our strengths and take a risk and release something that's more premium instead, like a premium game where people had to pay a price for, right? So after that, we kind of realized that for us, when we decide what game to make next, it's always based on our company's strength, not really what the trend is out there, and really what we want to make, what we feel passionate about, and what kind of game that we think we could do great in, right? So for us, that is kind of how we've gone so far. So I always use the analogy of like chicken rice. Like if you're great at selling chicken rice, don't go and like make pork chop or something like that, right? Because it may not be what you're great at, So that's kind of how we've decided what kind of projects we work on going forward.
So did when you launched Slashy Heroes, did it give you the indication that this is a good enough or good game for us to take this forward to make it into Cat Quest?
Oh, Slashy Hero? I think it did okay, but it wasn't like it wasn't gonna like it didn't sell gangbusters or anything, right? And and the experience we have with Slashy Hero, especially for like a free to play game, we didn't really like the experience because it's really hard for us to design something that how do you make something like frustrating enough just so that people want to spend some money to buy gems or something like that. We in the end we just wanted to make a game that was just super fun, that we felt would be great for people to play essentially. So that's why we did it in the end. We just made the shift to premium. And actually we thought we were going to close down, like after the first Cat Quest, we thought, okay, no one's going to buy our game, that kind of thing. But but thankfully it did okay for us.
Very cool. Very cool. So I guess I would like to stay on the topic of dream game, right? Can you share with us what you guys think is a dream game? I mean, I assume that you guys are working on your dream game at the moment. I guess for Xiang, it's a little different because you are client services, right? So you have to do what your clients want, but maybe share with us a little bit, what is your idea of a dream game? I mean, you have enough time in making games now, 10 years perhaps, some of you. What's your idea of a dream game? Because the topic is about dream game and sustainability. So we try our little chit chat about dream game and what that means to us.
I think for us, a dream game actually covers two things. One is whether it can sustain the company, whether there's actually some market viability in the game. And the other part would be something that you're interested to create. So like if there's a segment in the pie chart that intersects both of this, that's like the perfect place you want to be. And it's actually, as you grow your studio, when there's more people involved, right, this pie becomes a bit more harder to intersect because different people have different tastes, different strengths, different abilities to create a game. And that would eventually, if there's somehow you can find a small area, I think that's a really very good thing to have in a team. So regarding the kind of games you want to make, I think if you look around the industry, right, there are now it's quite a good time because there are actually multiple different routes. You can go premium. Premium is actually making a resurgence. And then there are also the free-to-play markets, the hyper-casual market, where the barrier of entry is really low. So there's actually steps where people can start working towards in making their dream game. For me personally, I don't really speak for other people in my studio. It's to make something like where art, business, and passion can intersect. So it's game like 11-bit studios, Frostpunk, this war of mine, where I like to show people like, hey, this is how games actually can be art, and I'm hoping that I can do that for some of my own kind of projects in the future.
Cool. Yeah, that's for sure. I think the lucky thing we have for us as an industry is that the genre and the variety of games that we can actually produce is basically limitless, right? So I think for us is about defining what we are passionate about and wanting to move forth with that creation and that expression of that game. So what about Desmond? I assume Cat Quest is your dream game, but could be wrong.
Cat Quest is a universe that we want to create within the company, right? We have this. We always say we want to make 9 Cat Quest games because cats got 9 lives, lah. It's just this really stupid thing. But personally, I mean, when I was young, I've always wanted to make a Sunokong game, like a monkey god game, right? But as you all know, this Chinese company somewhere is already doing a really good job about that. So my childhood dream, I'm putting that on hold for now, right? But personally, I would really say my dream game in a sense is just, I want to try a lot of different things. I want to try a lot of different genres with every game I make. Because I gain a lot of satisfaction from doing something new and experimenting with innovative ideas and things like that. That being said, I've always wanted to make a game based in Singapore, right? Like modern Singapore. Something like, Persona crossed with what life is like living here, right? So hopefully one day there'll be a market for this, hopefully. Maybe people around the world want to know what it's like, in Singapore and things like that, like the good stuff that we're very proud of. But yeah, so hopefully one day our company will get to do something like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sean?
I think my answer is a little bit more similar to Desmond's. I think if you ask maybe the idea doesn't change within a couple of years, but if you ask me what my dream game was 5 years ago, it was very different from what it is right now. One of the, I guess, projects we're working on that I'm really looking forward to is actually an isometric sort of a dungeon crawler. So I've always wanted to do one of those. And now we get the chance to do that. So yeah, I think Shixiang brings up some very valid points though, because for a lot of us, I mean, we're running this as a business. It's also our livelihood, and it's the livelihood of the people we work with, assuming that we have a crew, which all of us do, right? So I think definitely we have to care about the market viability of what we're making. It's not just like a for fun hobby project. So I think oftentimes there's a little bit of Shixiang's approach as well. We try and look at is this market viable? Do we have strengths that we can bring to this? Is there value add we can bring to the genre? So for Battle Brew, we've actually done a few different genres by now. There's idle clicker, there's your vertical shooter, there's cooking game, and now you have a isometric dungeon crawler. So I think for us, how to say, I think for this one, I mean, we've had a few chats with the crew as well. I think some business folks have definitely asked us, why don't you just do the same genre? But and as much as there's business, I think we're also artists and creators. So I think mental and creative fatigue is definitely a thing. So if you ask about okay, what do you want to do next? I think some of us do want to try different genres, and that helps keep the how to say, the emotional and creative spark alive. And I think that's actually one very important thing that we take for granted, because if you don't have that, you can't do the rest, right? Yep. You'll be burnt out quite literally. So I think for us, at heart, we are craftsmen and creators, and that ability to how to say, flex creative muscles of sort is definitely a reason why we started our own studio in the first place. Otherwise, we just go back to working for the people.
Yep, for sure. I think that's the core spirit of being an indie developer. I think, I mean, for us as well, that's what we hold dear. Unfortunately or fortunately for our team, if they're hearing this, money is money, right? So it's just a number in a way. If you drive or you design using numbers, sure, you can do that. It begets numbers, but they're just numbers. So that's our philosophy too. Cool. Right. So so building your dream game sounds like it's evolving over time kind of thing, right? So I mean, asking you guys whether you're close to building a dream game, I guess that's a redundant question, but so what are the hurdles that's keeping you from building that dream game? I guess we always dream bigger, right? So we've won success, for us, especially with Zhenghoi, and before we had Aviator, we had some taste of success in terms of money sense, right? So, but then as you move on, as the years move on, and you start building so-called the dream RPG that I love to do, or the dream isometric game that I love to do. What are the hurdles that is stopping you guys from getting there, given that time has passed for us all?
Maybe I can.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so for us, I think it's a bit more obvious because we have to juggle like external work as well as what we want to do. And then I think like most people can tell, like if there's something you want to do, you always kind of put it at the back burner, and then after a while your idea change, like circumstances change, you're like suddenly interested in something else. So the idea moves around a lot, or like what you see your strengths are at different point of time might be different also. So that's one reason why it's always on the back burner. I think another issue is like besides money, there's actually a lot of other things that we need to look out for in order to keep the company sustainable. So some of it is like morale, HR, where people have conflicts with one another, like hiring. How do you find the right person, the right fit for your company? Even if you find a person, how do you keep him? Like there's no point if he jump in on the project and then like, wow, he's the main designer for a game that you guys want to release, but after 3 months he gets an offer from someone else, and then like and they leave. I mean, like these are examples of like other kind of problems that I think if you start a studio, these are some of the sustainable things that you also have to think about, not just money, like how to handle people.
I agree.
Yeah. I think definitely for sure the skill of business, the business skills basically. I think Sixiang, because you're a business graduate, right? So you do look at it a lot from a business point of view. And I think for us, definitely over time is the business skills, right? Managing people, managing money, all that is opposite of creative, sense, right? It's very, they sometimes go loggerhead with each other, and it's really hard to manage. It's not, if you're a hobbyist and it's just you and maybe a partner or two, that's okay, that's easier to manage. But when it comes to a team of people, how do you manage that? So for Sean or Desmond, what are your thoughts on that? Managing people versus or managing a business as such?
Oh, Sean, maybe you can take this one. Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely had a change of staff and crew. I don't think you can keep everybody forever, because I think for a lot of people who even say if you wanted to join indie for the sake of indie, etc., right? I think sometimes it's good that if they've stayed too long, they go somewhere else and then they also learn skills. I think that's the natural flow of the industry. The important part for us as businesses is to try and ensure some level of continuity within the company. So I accept that you might have this designer for this project, but you might not have them for like 4 projects in a row. That's really asking quite a lot, especially if projects like take 2 years or something. That's 8 years with the company. In today's day and age, that's pretty insane to stay that long. I think the way we look at it more, and this is sort of an ideal hope for us, right? I think for us, managing cash flow, all of that is still something we are very aware of, right? But the ideal here would be, we might see you for this project. Maybe you go off to another company, you learn some things, do a project there. Who knows, you might come back later on 3 years down the road and then bring the lessons that you learned from the other company back here. The responsibility that I see that we have is to try and offer pay an environment that matches these expectations and make sure there's alignment. If there isn't alignment, then I don't think for me I would chase in the first place. Like for example, I don't think we're necessarily here to do bidding wars per se. But I think, if we can offer people salaries they're happy with, environments they're happy with, and projects that align with their interests, both professional and personal, then I think that's something that we definitely can and should do. But example is, to ask like the blunt question, like, do I expect people to stay forever? No, I think that's like a little bit too much. So yeah.
No, I was going to say I think our company has the opposite problem, right? Like financial sustainability is one thing, but mental sustainability is another thing as well, right? So like we're a really small company, just the three of us. So we wear a lot of different hats, right? And one might wonder how long this would be sustainable, right? Because burnout is a very real thing within our industry. So you keep doing something so intensely for so long, you're gonna get burnt out, right? So a huge part of why I now believe that a company needs to grow, a company needs to be bigger than its co-founders is simply because of this very reason, right? Sustainability financially, yeah, it's one thing, but to keep a company going for the really, really long term, you're gonna need to fight that burnout as well. You're gonna need something. You're gonna need people, fresh blood always entering the company, and that is how I believe true sustainability can be reached. I mean, something that fulfills both mental sustainability as well as financial sustainability.
No, I definitely agree. So I think for me, the definition there is between like say co-founders or your like top management, etc., versus say people who are quite upfront. Maybe they're here to learn, right?
Yeah.
And you're not you're not a retirement home. They don't expect to be here for the next 20 years per se, right? So I think that's one reason for Battle Brew. I think why creatively we tend to do different genres as well.
Right.
Granted, there'll be some things that I don't think will change. Like, I don't think the art style for the studio will like drastically take a huge right turn or something. I think the stuff we're doing will generally still be cute. I don't foresee us doing like hardcore realistic horror games, for example, even though some of us like horror, but it's more like, okay, we're going to squeeze in some elements from that, but I don't see us like, changing huge direction, right?
Horror bunnies.
I mean, yeah, so we like cute and scary things, right? So it's that kind of thing. But yeah, I think where I'm coming from is if someone is very clear, especially if like say they're new in the industry and they haven't experienced a whole bunch of things, as long as that desire is there, I don't think necessarily it's my place to like hold them back per se. For some of them, they want to experience indie, then they want to experience AAA. I think that's all fine and good. That's part of the journey, right? In comparison, I think if you ask who might stay longer per se, it might be the ex-AAA, because some of us are ex-AAA, who had a taste of that and then want more control. Then I kind of get that, right?
One more creative freedom.
Yeah, basically, right? And financial freedom for some of them also, right? So I think it's about trying to find the alignment in needs, and it's not always going to be a perfect fit. I admit that, and that's where compromises need to be made, and then whether you can have a fair agreement that you agree on, that's part of it, right? But sustainability to me then would be is the core team, are their needs met? And some of it you can't do anything about. That's where I talk about alignment, right? So are your core emotional needs met? Are your core creative needs met? Are your financial needs met? So I think for us, we have a responsibility to try and match all of those three things. Technically speaking, if you've got those three things matched, then I think you're generally happy enough in life. You're kind of satisfied. I won't say like you're like to the moon happy, but those are your core needs that are met. Again, when are those not met? Pay is definitely important up to a point. But beyond a certain point, I think there's some things where, let's just say like I myself was offered gigs where I would have gotten a substantial like pay raise, and I would not have taken the job up, mostly because it would have killed my emotional and creative needs. So I think it's about balancing those three and seeing how to balance those three. As the company grows, right? I think, again, to be honest, people will join the company for various reasons. Some of them are very honest about it, and I like that, right? So they go, I'm here for learning, and I'm not sure if it's going to be my permanent home. I think I'm totally fine with that. That's cool. Just, I think what would be reasonable would be like, for roughly how long can we finish this project, and then try to be fair to both sides, both the company and the employee. And beyond that, I don't think as company management we can ask for more. It's more of our duty to try and provide the other way around. That's that.
Cool. So let's move the conversation a little bit to, again, I mean, I guess the sustainability part that we've been talking about. So it sounds like in order to sustain us as indies, we got the core team, right? And then you got the people who are around that team of, like, you know, the core 3 or the core 2 with you and your co-founders. So being able to sustain the emotional needs or the creative needs versus the business needs, I mean, that's constantly on that seesaw, right? So you can sometimes seesaw to this creative need is like wearing me out, or, you know. So and it sounds like you guys have a kind of a good balance method now of how to keep this kind of to your liking, and we know, like, you know, stats have shown that for indie company or to survive, right, you need to, especially those that are creating their own IPs, you got to afford some failures. You got to afford some, you know, like out of like maybe one success, you would have 3 to 5 failures, say, right? So any insights how you manage that? I mean, I guess our audience, some of them will come from a hobbyist point of view, meaning, you know, they come out from school and they have this like dream project. And I think many of us come from that point where you had this initial burst of like creativity and gumption, and say, okay, this is the project I'm taking out, so I'm going to make this like an awesome project, and it's going to fly, right? So how do you take that, like, you know, taking that vision, I guess, and holding it high, and then as you know, you don't have much money, you don't have, you know, a lot of so-called resources, so to speak. Is there anything you can advise in terms of like managing that? Desmond, is there anything you?
I mean, generally for us, we always try to have like 3 to 4 years of burn rate in our company, like runway, right? So burn rate is the amount of expenses the company spends in a month or a year or whatever, right? So we always try to have enough reserves to last us 3 to 4 years at the very least. For the projects we undertake, I mean, there's lots of ways an indie developer can get funding nowadays. Apple Arcade is one way, investors are another way. You know, there's lots of different ways. Even some platforms or publishers do fund games as well, right? So we take all this into account, right? We find out what is the kind of game we want to make, and who is the best partner, and what kind of funding we can get for this. We kind of just balance everything, and then we kind of just go from there. Yeah.
Cool.
I think maybe Shixiang is actually, I think, could be pretty good for this, because you have a really big team, right? I'm actually personally curious how you manage your burn rate. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll start like how to enter the industry for hobbies or something first, then later on I'll cover like managing burn rate. So, cause I think it's like, how can a person who, without any background, like achieve their dream game or something somehow? So actually, I've noticed there are 2 types of people that want to make games. One are the people that actually have some game development background. They understand part or the whole pipeline of like what is needed. And there are also people that actually are very new to the industry. They don't understand what goes into making a game. Maybe they understand a bit of game design, a bit of game mechanics, a bit of story writing, but putting it all together might be something different to them. And when coming into the industry, right, all these different people actually have different challenges. So besides looking for an avenue to I mean, like, okay, if you have certain capabilities, you or your core team have the ability to make a game, that's good. You guys can start and bootstrap and start running. So like that's like how we did when we had like a programmer artist and everything. So we were able to like patch together a game, although we lack experience, but we could make something. But if you come from a perspective where, come from an angle whereby you don't have any of this support, then there'll be a bit more challenge, whereby you can either like find ways to sell yourself, find ways to find the people to collaborate with, or you have to pivot to a more business role whereby you can actually find ways to get publishing or money or innovation funds in order to move your project forward, because you're definitely not doing it by yourself, and you probably need people to help you run. Then regarding cash flow, which was what Desmond was asking earlier, it's actually very tricky for us because I'm not sure about you guys, but for us, cash flow is not always consistent. So, sometimes project comes in March, you get a big lump sum, then after that you don't get money for the next 6 months or next 3 months, and then it's not always whereby you can predict things and like how people come and promise you projects, but they might come to you 1 year later. So a lot of it is a gamble, actually, I would say. Like, like there might be this amount
such is game development.
It is. It totally is.
No, I totally understand, because coming from client services, you definitely do get times when you did the job, but you don't get paid for the next 6 months.
Yeah, they might drag it for very long, or like you don't sign it off.
Not to say government, I think that should improve upon that. Hint, hint. But ultimately, the truth is that you don't get paid, and then what do you do, right? So do you guys? I don't know if this is too personal a question, but like, do you guys use loans to bridge some of your cash flows, or?
Not for
actually.
Okay.
Now it's a very good time to get a loan because of the temporary bridging loan. So
the low interest rate.
The loan interest rate is very low. So that's something that we're considering in the future. But in the past, we haven't really made use of this this method to manage cash flow. But going back to what I was saying earlier, it's like a lot of it is. It's like you have to gamble whether I need the manpower when the project starts. When they start, they won't give you time. Okay, I give you 2 months again for manpower for this project. They expect you to start it on that day, and then if you don't get the project, you also have to manage that. So one way which we are currently managing is to have a certain amount of like flexible production resources whereby they can scale up and scale down based on like production
like freelancers or something.
Basically, they are freelancers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's working well for you guys?
It's something that we kind of moved to a bit recently. So right now we are still experimenting with that.
Right.
But I think
it's true. I think with COVID as well, I think with the remote working, all that is making it like quite feasible. But at the same time, the coordination part is a little challenging, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, like even now, if work from home arrangement, I think everybody's working for remote, so it's already a bit more difficult. Now, so moving towards a remote freelance is actually quite like a second nature.
I see. True.
Cool. But given the choice, do you think loan is a good idea? Like, especially loan interest for would somebody, if they have a dream of making a game?
Not for fresh grads.
Yeah. So I mean,
not for fresh grads.
No. Yes, no, don't do that.
The good thing about getting a loan is like when you can get a loan means you're not a fresh grad. There's some experience. When the bank looks at your company, they know that you're not gonna close down in the next. They have certain confidence that you can repay. So for fresh grad, unfortunately, or like new hobbyists, this is not really an option that you can explore unless you want to mortgage your house, which I don't recommend. Don't do that at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so I want to talk a little bit maybe about, I mean, you guys have your successes, but I also want to talk about some of the points, if you can remember, some of the worst point in your length of time of doing business.
Whoa, it looks like Sean has
you guys
story.
Can say, no, I do not want to discuss this, it's just too painful, or, you can go with it. So I'm posing that question and say, what is the lowest of the low for you guys? Like, anything to share there?
I think maybe for us out of the entire studios, we've been the most gambly, I guess. No, it's just basically, I mean, like what Shu Xiang said, right? Cash isn't guaranteed, nor is it stable. Even if your game made money, the question is how much money did it make, right? And again, then you view it as like, oh, we have X months or X amount of time, etc. based off this, and then like half a year later you make more money, you go like, hey, congrats, we made more money, that's nice. Or you make a deal with a publisher or somebody or something, right?
They give you
cash. But the truth is, I think for a lot of folks this is not guaranteed, and even if you've got a hit like arguably Cat Quest, I think even Desmond is very aware that whilst he might have a nice runway, it's still finite. It's not necessarily infinite. So I think you're always more relaxed when you have more runway, but you're never gonna think, okay, this is an infinite flow of cash. That's generally not gonna happen. I think for us, it's just a simple thing of we've definitely come a few times quite close to like, okay, if we don't make some money, or if like we don't finish this game in time, then we will have to close the company. That's that. And I think that was like super stressful, and it generally still is if you think about it, etc. But I think as the company gains a track record and makes money on its own, this generally becomes easier to deal with. Your range of options opens up. Yeah, that's generally like the worst. And I think the cash is one thing, but the emotional, I think, feeling of like letting your crew down, and this could happen on like many fronts, right? If like one department happens to be like the roadblock, if you like phrase it that way, like other departments are waiting on that one department, then the emotional toll can be quite strong as well. So it's not even necessarily like, say, I'm not going to say it's resting on the owners or whatever. It's sometimes also definitely the crew. So I think it's a balancing act as it always is. You're just trying to you're just trying to balance that and trying to think long term.
Right, Desmond, any low points you want to share?
Oh, I mean, there was one I will always remember. Like near the end of the first Cat Quest, we ran out of money. We couldn't even like finish paying our composer for the music, right? So I still remember we were like, oh shit, if this game doesn't succeed, right? we were like, we're definitely gonna have to close. And it's very funny because I'm not sure whether I can say this, but when we started, we got like a grant from what's it, Enterprise Singapore or something like that. But the funny thing about the grant is that we will only get like the major milestone payout if our game succeeds. So it's like, but that's where we need the money, right, to make the game succeed. So it's like a catch-22. So I always remember that it was like the days before Cat Quest was gonna launch, right? We were like super nervous, man. We're like, oh my gosh, like is this gonna work, right? Then when Cat Quest came out, it did way better than we ever thought it would do, right? It's like, so we're like, whew, it's like what Sean was saying. It's like you're constantly feeling like you're drowning. Then when you get some money, it's like you're like, whoa, okay, I'm not so close to drowning anymore. And then the water's coming up again. You're like, shit, need more money. Something like that. Yeah, bucket.
Yeah, you're constantly scooping out water from your sinking ship, right? So a little bit like the kind of feel.
And it was worse for us because I don't know, Sean, but I don't really remember. Like we were all at Pixel together at that time,
we were all at Pixel, right?
Yeah, and everyone else around us were making free-to-play games. We're the only idiots.
No. Let me tell you,
like a premium game.
It's its own it's its own risk. Okay, so at least you have like guaranteed money.
Actually, that's true. Desmond, you went against the grain in a way, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, free-to-play was like the thing to do, right? And you went premium. It's like
we felt
on mobile,
so alone,
on mobile, right?
On mobile as well. Exactly. I mean, we did launch on Steam as well, but it was we're still strongest on mobile even till today. Yeah. So it was like really nerve-wracking. I still remember. Yeah. So that was
kudos to you guys for sticking to that. So Sixiang, any low points for you?
Wow, low points. I think like similar to both of them. I think generally the journey will be like peppered with low points. like when you look at your bank account, like, wow, shit, how do I pay people next month? And then like you start figuring out, or like whereby you do something and it's just not right. You can see that the design or something is not right, but do you have time to change it? Can you afford to change it? Sometimes you have to do things that you're not that comfortable with, but you don't really have a choice. And then it eats into your soul quite a bit.
No game that ever launches is perfect, I think. It's always something the developer wanted.
Yeah, I think it's hard for client services because for us, right, like when we launch the game, we still have, it's in the store, we still have the chance to patch it, we still have the chance to kind of make it better in a way, right? So for you guys whereby you need to get paid basically for the game that you put out, right? And you feel that it's not the best still, but you got to deliver it. You got to like give it, like otherwise you can't be paid, you know. So that is also very
true.
stressful.
That we also have to deal with quite a lot of like challenging people whereby expectations and reality isn't like a line, and then like how do you communicate that to them without telling them that they're expecting like crazy things, like they want maybe the entire cat quest done in 2 months, and like it's impossible. But like I mean, like the kind of like requirements that they're asking for sometimes can be challenging, and how do you communicate it across to them without them thinking that you're just trying to like slag, cut corners, or like but I think the main thing to add that wasn't mentioned earlier by Sean or Desmond is the dread, I think, like because things don't happen like right at the moment. Oh shit, you open your bank account and there's no money. It happens months in advance, where I can see your bank account going down, and then like, is there anything that's going to prop it up in the next few months? There's two things. I have to bet a lot. I have to bet on like things going right in order for things to continue, and then you're just hoping, and if it comes, it's good. Then you sigh a breath of relief. You look down. Okay, like this gives me another 4 more months. Okay, in the 4 months what will happen and everything, and then it just keeps going. So I think it's mentioned quite a lot of time. One of the key attributes for a successful founder would be the resilience, and like like not being able to keep absorbing all these emotions, all these low points, and still move forward. Yeah, because given enough time, enough resources, everybody can be successful.
Yeah. So with this, I definitely agree. I mean, I think over time, and most of us already, almost a decade or more into it. How do we keep ourselves going, like passion versus long haul, right? How do we manage that long haul? Any tips? I mean, apart from like what we all seem to have in common, the ups and downs, or trials and errors of managing the business and the creative senses. Any tips that for either be it a hobbyist or a studio owner, any tips for doing the long haul bit? How can we kind of, I wouldn't say shoulder it on, but like, is there anything we can?
Well, I mean, for us, we always try to have a long-term plan, right? So like,
planning is
planning, yeah, definitely have a plan. I mean, even before you start your own indie company or any company in general, always have a plan. Don't just start without one, right? Because you're not sure what's going to happen. But as to how to mentally handle it, right, so you don't go crazy and explode, is for what works for me is to just always cross like one bridge at a time, right? So there's going to be a lot of things you need to do, but just do one at a time, and eventually you're going to get to the end point. And making games is very similar as well. So that's how I stop myself from imploding from inside. Yeah, but like interested to see what you guys do.
I think for me, it's
Sean paints minis, right? That's what you do too.
No, it's not just that. So I think hobbies are one thing, but I think knowing that you're not alone. So talking to other people in the industry or related stuff is important. I think it's both practical and good for mental health, because other people might have the connections and or skills and or viewpoints that you need to like dig yourself out of a hole. Some of it might actually be like practical problems you're facing, aka like you're like, oh, I can't find the correct publisher, or I need funding, or one of the two, and maybe they're related. And then someone's friend of a friend of a friend happens to be a publisher looking for the exact kind of game you're making. You go like, wait, what? So I think both on a practical and mental health side, you definitely need to talk to people. I think like one thing, I mean, I know you guys, right? So Desmond has mentioned Pixel. So I mean, we were neighbors at one point. I think just having like other studios to talk to was great. Then you can share lobang contacts. To be fair, we've even like not say fully co-developed, but we've worked with some of the other studios before.
Pixel needs to come back, man. Where's Pixel?
Well, hey man, if
come on, I hope someone is listening to this from Pixel.
Can somebody quickly describe
from the government?
Pixel? Yeah. Can somebody?
So Pixel was a co-working space. It still is a co-working space.
But not for game.
Well,
anymore,
I don't
right?
see much
everybody,
games now.
YouTubers.
It used to have that. A lot of companies were there together. We were all in the same space. It's basically a co-working space. And at the time that we were there, Desmond was our neighbor. One of the other Apple Arcade, both of them, in fact, both of the other Apple Arcade studios were also our neighbors at one point. So Mighty Bear was like 2 rooms away. And
but at that point I had already left, I think.
Yeah, you had moved up, but we were still there. We were still there. So I think it was generally like a good environment.
Like co-op feel of a space.
We need that back, right, guys? Hint,
that was definitely
like from like a form of Pixel in the past.
Right. Hey, sorry to cut you guys short, but I think Cheryl is signaling me I got 10 minutes or less left.
Oh, we got 10 minutes.
So, and we have a question. We have a question. So thank you all for being candid and like awesome. We are going to answer a question. Are there any advice you would give for when you're looking to put together your core team? What are some resources, guides you wished you had back when you started? Maybe the first part first.
I think I'll just go really quick because my story might be partially similar to Desmond's at the very least. It'll definitely share similarities with Shixiang. So I think a bunch of us were schoolmates and classmates. And some of us know each other for like definitely more than a decade. Like definitely remember like graduating around the same time and like complaining about school. So I think for me the ideal,
so
and that's the ideal.
School, Digipen.
Digipen. Yeah, Digipen. You want people that you can trust professionally, definitely, but I think also personally. The personally bit is, I mean, if you don't trust them, then why are you like running a startup's not an easy thing, or running any business even is not an easy thing. You're in a very rough state. You will have to go above and beyond the call of duty. You want people who will have your back, and you should have their back. If you don't have that, that's going to be very, very tough to deal with. So I think if you ask me what's ideal, and it might sound idealistic, I'm sure like some other industries don't do it this way, but I think we are creative ones, so it matters even more. You need to find people you can trust on a personal level to do this.
It's like you're getting married to the person, in a sense. In a way. So like for us, all co-founders we met in Koei Tecmo, we were actually sitting next to each other, and then we were like, hey, let's make a game. And then Gentle Bros was born, right? But one thing I would say is when you're putting together your core team, make sure the people in your team kind of fulfill all the core pillars of game development. So programmer, right, artists, designers, stuff like that. Because if not, you're going to have to find like outside support or third-party support to help fill up the gaps you need. At the same time, it's not really part of the question, but no matter how close you are as a team, right, always be prepared that one day, people may want to move on, right? Or they want to leave, or your co-founders may want to do something else. So always bear that in mind. Nothing would really last forever, and make sure you have mechanisms in place to help everyone transition when that time comes.
So what about places like ArtStation or those kind of more global yet, not just based in Singapore kind of resources? Are they good resources that you recommend? Sorry, like freelancing, like I don't know, Fiverr or whatever you call them.
Actually,
that's out
there's
there.
been a studio that's successfully with co-founders across the world, and they're actually one of the more successful one. The one that's doing the Chinatown Detective. Yeah, okay. I think he found his partners on ArtStation and all the different portals. So it's actually possible. But going back to what I think Desmond was saying, like a lot of it is, I mean, not only game industry, like a big part of it. In business world where co-founders fall out because they have disagreement, they can't agree money. And it's not about the time whereby you don't have money, so like when you have money then that's when disagreement actually starts. Then the other part about resources, I think having perfect information when you start is never going to happen. You're never going to know. There's going to be so many problems. It's more of how the team can come together to solve problems, be it technical problems about building the game or business problem on how to find publishers or managing of people. So I think the attitude that you have to go forward with is like being able to take any kind of blows and just be prepared to deal with it when it comes. Yeah, because I think a lot of Singaporeans suffer from like always trying to be too prepared before they step out of their comfort zone and try something. And then like I have so many friends saying they want to do something, but they never do it because they feel that they are never ready.
I thought it was more of the risk averse.
Yeah,
Mm.
and that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, to be fair, I think if at different stages of your life, the needs, the monetary needs is a little different as well, right? So if you are a student still living with your family and all that, that cuts your costs down. The risk is actually very little in the sense, right? Other than convincing your family that, you're gonna kind of incubate this idea and try to bring it to market. I mean, other than that, right? So the risk is low there as such. You may risk opportunity costs in terms of maybe working a few years for a global company or MNC or whatever, because that also brings you the experience. So I guess you constantly trying to weigh out those opportunity costs as well. And then as you move on to the next phase, like you are now that you have, quite a lot of experience under your belt, you have worked for AAA or have your own company, you also need to think about what are the things that you're trying to achieve here to kind of keep check and keep balance and allow for change. I think that's the challenging part. Cool. So we have about 2 minutes left. Anything else we want to talk about? 2 minutes left. We have 2 minutes left.
I think there's one question in the chat, but do you guys want to answer it or?
There's.
Or just
did I miss
I
a question?
also see a couple of good questions in the Discord, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm not on Discord. Can anybody print it here on?
If you had noticed your dream game is not receiving as much hype from players to the extent it potentially affects sustainability, what factors help you decide between pushing forward, completing it earlier, or jumping to the next project?
You notice your dream game is not receiving as much hype from players.
So this is
as well as you thought.
Post-launch?
Yeah, okay.
The game has already launched or what?
Sounds like it has launched.
Maybe it sounds like early access, or I mean, you're not getting enough traction. Actually, that is one thing that for Battle Brew we do measure. So we canned the project last year, mostly because it wasn't getting enough traction, and we went with another project because it got a lot of traction. So we do measure that. As to when exactly, I mean, that's you gotta look at it yourself, right? There's too many factors.
But for us, CatQuest didn't really get a lot of hype or traction before launch. Maybe because we didn't really do much marketing.
Some time to kind of roll on that gathering.
So it really just broke off, like it really broke up, right? When big streamers started playing our game, right? So good things can happen even after you launch, like Angry Joe and Cryonics or whoever. Can't remember their names by now. They played CatQuest when they launched, right? So I think that was a huge part of how people got to hear about the game.
Was that your plan or was it your publisher's plan?
It was the plan all along, right? But we would kind of like introduce the game to all these streamers, YouTubers, and publications. But obviously, we can't guarantee if they'll pick it up or play it, right? So essentially, what I'm trying to say is, sometimes if your game isn't getting a lot of hype, it doesn't mean your game is bad, right? I mean, before launch, right? And like Among Us is a very big, it's a great example as well. Like Among Us was a game that a lot of people didn't really know about.
A long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think some a Twitch streamer or something played it and it just exploded, right? So
that's true.
Yeah, so anything can happen.
Koi is also similar as well. Like, so I think the misconception is that when we launch our game, we have so much hopes pinned on that launch, right? That we assume that it should take off with all the hard work we put in, and everything looks good, assuming everything is all in place, right? But actually it does take time. I would say sometimes 3 to 6 months post-launch that you kind of like, gather some momentum towards that kind of a public play, right? Where people have played your game enough to talk about it, and also introducing it to streamers and everybody, and doing the more business development part of just putting your word out there to everybody as much as you can. Cool. All right. Cheryl has announced to us his time's up. Thank you, guys. It's been really, really a good session. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Oh,
see you.
what?
Gentle Bros is hiring. Gentle Bros is hiring software engineers.
Okay, plug.
Please
Please
send in your applications to us. Thank you.
Bros are hiring. Okay.
Thank you
All
all
right,
so
thanks,
much.
guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.